Hey guys, and welcome to Money Talks News, the podcast. Did you know that a woman's right to get a credit card without the signature of a man is only 50 years old? That's right. Until the passage of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act in 1974, financial institutions could discriminate against women who didn't have a male cosigner. So today we're going to be talking about the importance of financial independence for everyone, but it's especially important for women. Our guest today, Jannese Torres, left a toxic marriage and started her life fresh thanks to the financial resources she built. Now she's sharing her tips on leveling up your finances in her book, Financially Lit. Welcome, Jannese.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is certainly our pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your background.
So, fun fact, I did not intend to be a personal finance educator. This is very much an accidental career for me. But it started from a place of just feeling like I got sort of part of the story about what you're supposed to do with money. You're supposed to go to school and learn how to make a lot of it. But that was pretty much where the end of the conversation was. And so I found myself making money, but continuing to find myself in the cycle of getting into debt, getting out of debt, feeling like I wasn't making a lot of financial progress. And it wasn't until I started listening to personal finance podcasts around 2016 that I realized how much there was about money that I had no clue about. So after being an avid student of the personal finance world for 3 years, I decided to start my own podcast, Yo Quiero Dinero, which is now a 5-time award-winning podcast that teaches women of color, and especially Latinas, the power of becoming financially literate.
Is your podcast in Spanish?
No, it's actually in English.
Oh, good. I'd like to listen to it. I have not done so, and I thought because of its title that it would be in Spanish. I will listen to it.
Yeah, so the title of the podcast, it's a funny story. I was listening to a song called Dinero by Jennifer Lopez and Cardi B, and a part of the chorus of the song says, Yo quiero dinero, which means I want money. And that was a light bulb moment for me. I literally ran to my computer, typed in, does this exist? Yo Quiero Dinero, the podcast. It did not. And so that set in motion the trajectory where now I get to do this full time. And I've been doing it for the past 3 years.
Now, I have to ask you something, and you had to know this question was coming. This is about women, reasons women need financial independence. Doesn't everyone need financial independence? Why are we isolating women for this episode?
Well, I think you're completely right. All of us could use a lot more options, which is what becoming financially independent gets you. But I think when we take into context the fact that women tend to live longer, and therefore they are way more likely to end up being alone and going to require to have some sort of financial literacy to manage their finances once they are either widowed or divorced, it's imperative for us to plan for that inevitable future. And so that's why so much of the focus in the conversation, for me at least, is from the lens of why it's important to a woman.
So does that mean that you women intend on living longer than I do? Because I'm not okay with that. Miranda,
100%, 100%.
I don't think we're doing it on purpose. It just kind of happens. Biology is in our favor, I think, a little bit.
Well, I think age is also in your favor in this specific instance because I'm about 1 million years older than both of you.
I'm 100% going to outlive you, Stacey.
Well, this is not a challenge. The bar is very low, Miranda. I may not make it to the end of this podcast. How long is it? Is it going to be more than 30 minutes? I may not make it. I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about financial freedom, which is basically what we talk about every week in one way, shape, or form. So give me some advice on the kind of advice that you dole out, Jannese.
Yeah, so I like to focus in on really impactful things that you can do with your money. And for me, the single biggest impact that I've been able to have in my own journey is learning how to make more money. I think a lot of the personal finance conversation tends to focus on cutting back and saving and clipping coupons and things like that, which has its merit, but at the same time, there's only so much you can cut, especially if you're from a marginalized community where you're already underpaid and overworked. So that's why I think it makes a lot of sense for folks to focus not only on cutting back where wasteful spending might be happening, but also focusing in on earning more income. Because when you have more money, you can save more, you can invest more, you can potentially diversify those income streams and just give yourself a lot more options when it comes to freedom.
What were some of your bad money habits before you got into personal finance?
I was definitely a credit card swiper without a plan of how I was going to pay it off. So I was the type that would just put a vacation on a credit card and then kind of deal with the stress and anxiety of how I was going to pay it back later. And I found that it's a temporary high that very quickly wears off when you realize, oh, wow, we keep doing this over and over again. So I still use credit cards to make purchases, but now I always make sure that I have a plan to pay it off before I even swipe.
That's familiar. I used to do that.
And were you ever like that, Miranda?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all been there where we were like, oh yeah, this is fine. This is fine. They gave us this money. But I think that's the thing, right? Is we don't think about it because we think of it as our money without realizing that it's not our money and we have to pay it back. And now, now I go through a process. It's part of the budget. I do pay for everything with card, but it's part of my spending plan to say, okay, I'm only going to spend as much as I have and make sure that I pay off the credit card each month. And I think a lot of that went back to deciding to pay attention to my finances and start tracking where my money was going and then whether or not where my money was going aligned with my values.
I think for me, it was more about I want it now and I'll just pay it. I'll pay it down the road.
But this is the same type of thing that Janice was just saying, though, guys. I wanted to circle back to what she said, because what she said was personal finance tends to focus on cutting back on expenses. But what it really should be about, in addition at least, is making more money, which actually, it makes sense that personal finance is mostly about cutting back on expenses because that's a uniform thing that everyone can do, whereas making more money is different for different people, I would assume, right, Janice?
Yeah, absolutely. You can pursue different career opportunities that can pay you more. You can job hop. You can decide to diversify your income by becoming potentially like a real estate investor or an entrepreneur. So there are a lot of different ways to learn how to make more money. But I think that most people can find a way that suits them.
Well, I want to make more money. And I've got boxes of 50 stacked up all over my house. I mean, but I still want more. So give me some ideas on how to make more money. Where all three of us, and even our listeners, can make more money. Give me some ideas.
Well, I think there's a huge advantage now with the power of the internet to create a business that has a pretty low footprint financially, but also allows you to reach a lot of different people. And so the areas that I focus in on are online income streams, particularly for folks who have a service-based business or idea. I think most of us along our career paths have picked up either professional skills or maybe you have personal skills that you use in your downtime that could potentially be turned into a business. So I like to tell folks to start by making a list of all of those things that you are either good at or that you enjoy doing, and then kind of go down that list and rank them for how much would you enjoy actually getting paid to do this? Is it a heck yeah, or is it like there's no amount of money that someone could pay me to do this? And then it's a matter of figuring out how you're going to now package this skill set into some sort of offer, how you're going to market it, and how you're going to get paid for it. And once you get those kind of three questions answered, you can officially start your own side hustle.
Well, you must have lots of specific ideas for side hustles.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, give me some you've done in the past. Well, obviously, one thing you've done is what we're doing right this second, a podcast, very low barrier to entry.
Yes.
You get followers, and then you can be successful at it. I'm not suggesting, by the way, that podcasting is easy to be successful at, because it isn't. But it's an example of something that doesn't take much money to do, and as long as you can talk, then you can do it. But give me other ideas.
Sure. So I think there's kind of two things you have to know before you start a side hustle. The first is this an actual like long-term idea that you want to pursue, or is this a short-term thing that you just want to make more money for a specific goal? If you have just like a short-term savings goal or investing goal, maybe you don't need to start a whole business. Maybe you can pick up some gig work through one of those apps like Rover or Uber or things like that, and just it's a means to an end. But if you have longer term aspirations to potentially make a career pivot or even just become fully self-employed, then I think it makes sense to think about like what that longer term strategy is. So I like to tell folks, most of us can probably become consultants in some way, whether that's in your current industry or something that branches out from your current career, but is like adjacent. I've had students who started consulting businesses where they help entrepreneurs, for example, like with their marketing, or with their back-end software setup and systems and processes so that the creative entrepreneur can focus in on making money and creating that next big idea. Or it could be something where coaching is something you're passionate about. You want to help people get to a specific goal. You could decide to become a coach in any number of industries, whether that's fitness or health and wellness or mental health and things like that. So it really does boil down to kind of who you want to serve and how you want to be able to help them.
So I noticed you just used the word students. What exactly is your job? I know you have a successful podcast, obviously, but what is your long-term gig? Is it just that? Because you said students. Are you teaching?
Yes. So I have a number of digital courses where I teach folks how to turn their gifts into online income streams. I have some programs that are specifically for content creators, so people who want to become bloggers and podcasters. And then I also have programs for folks who want to start a side hustle or a full service-based, consulting-based business. So that's part of the work that I do outside of podcasting.
Are you listening to this, Miranda? Because these are some ideas. Do you have any side gigs, Miranda? Do you, for example, writing?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm writing, and then I also have mini courses. I have a self-published book that does me pretty okay, and I have another podcast that we just started earlier this year with a friend, and then I also have these Vellas that do me okay as well. So yeah, I have little income streams that I do on top of that, and I do a little bit of speaking, and I've done a couple workshops. I like the workshop thing, so I might do more workshops. So yeah,
I didn't know you had a book all this time.
I do a lot of stuff.
What's your book? What's your book called? Let's promote it.
Yeah, it's called Confessions of a Professional Blogger. The second edition, I released the second edition in 2022. So yeah, so the second edition, don't get the 2013 edition because that's outdated. It's the 2022 edition is double the size and better information and
is it about how to blog? Is that what it's about?
No, it's about the basics of building a freelance writing business, not specifically about blogging.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know this.
Yeah, cool.
So can you give me an example of some success stories that you've encountered, Jannese? I mean, like with your
Absolutely.
students, the things they've done?
Yeah, I think a lot of the people who tend to find my platform are people who are looking for more flexibility. And if you structure your business in a way that grants you that, I think that's the ultimate form of success. I'm thinking about a specific student named Tiffany who she was dealing with kind of balancing all of the things that get placed on us as women, right? Being the mom, focusing on your career. And she was also navigating a lot of health challenges. She has a number of autoimmune diseases. And she realized that the stress of her career as a DEI consultant, it was just too much for her, working for organizations that were consistently underpaying her and overworking her. She decided she would be better off creating a consulting business where she could set her hours and decide on what level of projects she wanted to take on. And after us working together as part of my side hustle program, she was able to quit her job and create her own consulting business that is now making her 5 times more than she was making in her current career. So there's a lot of those stories that come out of my community. And I think the biggest shift that has happened for a lot of people is that, especially for communities of color, there is this perception that entrepreneurship is a thing that you do because you have no other choice, because you're traditionally unemployable, whether that's due to immigration status or legal issues or just lack of education. And I'm really trying to help folks understand that entrepreneurship is not the last resort. It can actually be the thing that gives you more opportunities to earn more income and have more flexibility than you would in a traditional 9-to-5 career.
Yeah, I've been self-employed for 40 years.
Wow.
Been working at home for 30 years. But anyway, here's the thing that I'm going to ask you now, because this is the most important thing of all, and that is sales. Anyone can say something interesting or do something, or maybe they have some specific knowledge or something like that, but you got to get clients. Now, when you're driving for Uber, your clients are already given to you. But if you're starting your own consulting business, let's say, how the heck do you find people to pay you?
Yeah. Well, I think it's another one of these situations where it's not a one size fits all. Obviously, the first place to look is your current network. So sending out emails to folks who you think would be potential clients is a good place to start. But I think the power of the internet has really given people a lot of more different options when it comes to marketing themselves. So social media obviously is low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of different platforms that you can use depending on who your target audience is. I would recommend looking at platforms like LinkedIn if you are focusing on people who are in business, or if you are an aspiring coach or a consultant, a place like Instagram or Facebook might make more sense. So I think it requires you to kind of understand who your target audience is and then finding the tools that would get you in front of them, or would at least be the most likely to get you in front of them. And then create compelling content. Show people your expertise. Don't be afraid to sell yourself. I think there's this perception where you don't want to come off like too salesy, or you don't want to remind people that they can work with you. And at the end of the day, you have to let people know what their option is to work with you, and you have to just get really unapologetic about continuing to market yourself, because you gotta get paid. You gotta pay the bills.
Yeah, I've always go ahead, Aaron.
Those terms, consultant and coach, always seem to be thrown around a lot. And I never quite understood how everybody could be a consultant and a coach. I remember being in the newsroom, and the news managers, they would hire consultants, but they were actually scapegoats to keep the news director from getting fired, because it was their choice. It was their recommendation. Don't fire me.
Yeah, that's actually true. AR&D.
Yeah.
Yeah, we work. Aaron and I both come from the news business, and we worked with consultants too. But I agree with you, Aaron. And I think the coaching thing too can be kind of weird. I mean, it's just anyone can call themselves a coach.
Yeah, is that like a blanket term now? I mean,
I think it. Well, let's ask our expert, Janice. Is that a blanket term now?
So theoretically, yes, it's not a regulated industry, so anybody can claim to be a coach, but I think the proof is in the pudding, right? So you have to actually have some knowledge around the area where you're trying to coach. And I like to compare the two titles, coach versus consultant, in this way. So typically when you're hiring a consultant or even like a service provider, they're going to be doing part of the work that you hire them to do, right? So you're hiring them for their level of expertise to do a specific task. Whereas a coach is more like, think about somebody who is in sports. They're not actually the ones playing the game. They're giving you the information that you need to play the game at your best. So that's how I like to differentiate the two.
So if you can do, and if you can't, teach.
Yes, exactly.
But no, I know a lot of people. I've been a salesman my whole life. And that's why I'm successful. I mean, I've been selling. But a lot of people are not comfortable with that. Yeah. Most of my friends, my wife is a nurse practitioner. She would no sooner sell than fly to the moon. She's uncomfortable. She doesn't like talking in front of people. She doesn't like the whole idea. How do you get someone over that hump?
Yeah, I think it's going to require sort of repeat exposure. Once you realize that it's not as scary as you think it is, I think that's when people start to get more comfortable. So I recommend folks kind of experimenting with putting themselves out there, whether that is getting out there on social media, whether that is starting a podcast, just like sharing your thought process and sharing your story and your success, I think can be it can be sort of a natural way to develop those skills. Fun fact, one of the things that I've done to get more comfortable about speaking in front of people is I'm a Zumba instructor. So I actually teach 3 days a week, and this is a great opportunity for me to exercise my leadership skills, convince people to dance and have fun, and it just puts me in a different environment that I would just being behind the computer, behind the keyboard. So just looking for opportunities to exercise that muscle, because like you said, sales is a skill set, and it's something that you have to practice, just like negotiating is a skill set, just like financial literacy is a skill set.
Miranda, how do you get new customers for your freelance writing?
I sit here and they come to me. So I am very lucky. I have been doing this for almost 20 years. Like next year will be the 20th anniversary of me being a freelance writer. And so at this point, people just come to me. But part of having people come to me is being very visible, right? So I have my website. It's not frequently updated, but I have my website. It makes it easy for people to find me. I make sure my LinkedIn profile is updated. I make sure I'm posting things on LinkedIn so that I'm visible in searches. And for the most part, it works very well just having people come to me and ask me to write for them. But in the past, I used to go to freelance writing job boards. There are many of them. I'd go to freelance writing job boards. I would set up alerts on LinkedIn for when they had new things posted, and I would apply. And I set it up so that I'd have my time where I'd be like doing client work. And then if I still had time during the day before my son came home from school or whatever it was, then it was like, okay, now I am working on applying. I'm getting my portfolio. I'm updating my portfolio pieces, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I had a question, and it's going to be a really stupid question for Jannese, for all of three of you guys probably, because I'm not a social media guy. I mean, I have a Facebook page, which I rarely go on, and I have a LinkedIn page, but I don't have, what's the other one that you said, Jannese?
Like Instagram. Or
so
TikTok or
when you
anything
put
like that?
you said put this out on Instagram, let's say, but isn't that only your friends seeing that? Or is it, I mean, are you able to solicit strangers on Instagram? I don't really understand the way it works.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can have a private account or you can have a public account. So public facing accounts are typically the ones that businesses would use. And they even have kind of options that you can choose for your account, whether you're a creator or you're a business. So it helps folks identify someone beyond their friend circle.
But you don't have to advertise. You don't have to pay to advertise.
No, you don't have to, but you can. You can absolutely pay Meta or aka Facebook to kind of boost your content and get in front of more eyeballs.
Do you suggest that?
I don't. And the reason why is because unless you know how to organically market to your audience, you're just going to waste a bunch of money on paid ads. You have to know very clearly what kind of content converts organically before you should be putting any money behind paid ads.
Well, it just seems like that would be a difficult row to hoe, being able to just put your stuff up where your friends are seeing it, or theoretically members of the public. But I mean, I don't know how you can build a business that way. I mean, you're going to get enough people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have about 65,000 followers on Instagram, and it's a huge marketing funnel. So the key, I think, to social media marketing is to get your followers off of social media as quickly as possible. So you want to have things like a newsletter, an email list, some sort of freebie, some sort of lead magnet, essentially, that you can funnel these people into your content, into your programming, into your courses, etc. So it's a great visibility tool, but you just have to be able to get folks off of social media and into your own network so that you can potentially turn them into paid clients.
Really? That's
Very cool.
interesting.
It is.
So you're saying get them into your webpage and get them into your email system.
Yes, absolutely. I am always soliciting folks to join the email list, to sign up for this freebie, to join this workshop, because once you have people's contact information, it's much easier for you to then continue that sales journey.
Okay, cool. So there is a way to do this. Okay. Now,
Yes.
let's move on because we don't have a whole bunch more time. Let's talk about what to do. Okay, now we found a place. We found a business that we like. We're promoting it. We're starting to get customers. We're starting to make money. What do we do with that money? Where do we put it?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of entrepreneurs make, especially in the beginning, is just reinvesting all of their income and not learning how to pay themselves, not setting aside some money for retirement or for bulking up your savings. So I like to advise folks to get into the practice of paying yourself, even in the beginning, even if it's like $20, $50, there is something psychological that happens when you realize that you are just as important as the business. And so that's one of the things that I consult my business clients on, is just the importance of setting up those financial systems in place, because typically when you're walking away from a corporate job, you have benefits and retirement and a steady paycheck, and you have to structure your finances in a way that makes your journey into entrepreneurship financially sustainable. And so setting up all those systems in the back end is something really
It's like
important.
setting up your own 401k and that sort of thing.
Now, what about
Exactly.
taxes and stuff like that?
Yep. So I like to advise folks to plan for spending at least 30% of the income that you bring in on taxes. Obviously, that can depend wildly based on your income, on the state that you operate in, etc. But one of the mistakes that I made as a fledgling entrepreneur was for the first 5 years, I wasn't even aware of the fact that you had to pay estimated taxes. So I would get a nice fat tax bill on April 15th and be questioning my life decisions. But after I realized, oh, wait, there's a system for this. I actually need to plan for this. Things got better. So it's just about planning for that fact.
It took you 5 years to figure out you were paying a penalty for not.
Yes. And it also didn't help that I was not working with an accountant. So that's another mistake that a lot of people make, is just trying to DIY your taxes as a business owner. Definitely not advised.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, another thing too I wanted to cover before we run out of time. You also, my notes here say to ask you about prenups and postnups, protecting your future earnings.
For sure.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I didn't realize the importance of having a postnuptial agreement until I got divorced a couple of years ago and realized that my financial assets and all of that would have been subject to divorce proceedings had I not had this document in place. And I've had discussions with other entrepreneurs, both on the podcast and in my personal life, who went through the same thing in the sense of getting a divorce, but not having a prenup or a postnuptial in place. And I think one of the things that people don't realize is that when you're building a business during marriage, this is seen as a marital asset, and your business and its value will be subject to divorce proceedings. So if you are building wealth in any way, shape, or form that you want to protect and preserve, a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement is something that is essential, because even if you don't put one together, you are subject to the prenuptial that your state decides, right? So if you live in a community property state, it's going to be a 50-50 split no matter who put what in. If your spouse didn't contribute $1 to your multi-million-dollar business, they're still entitled to half of it. So it's just so critical for especially women nowadays who have access to wealth building tools and opportunities that previous generations of women did not have access to. I think it's imperative for us to protect our wealth.
How much net worth do you think you need to have before you do a prenup?
0.
I don't think you have to be, I don't think you have to be at a specific number, because you have no idea what you're going to create during the course of the marriage. So you almost need to plan ahead for becoming wealthy without knowing what that actually is going to manifest into.
You ever paid for a prenup? They're expensive as hell.
Well,
go ahead, Mary.
I was going to say, it would be worth every penny to me. I have 4 lawyers in my family, so it doesn't cost me anything, but it would be worth it. I was lucky. So when I went through the divorce, I built my business while I was married. I was the primary breadwinner the entire marriage. But when I got divorced, I was lucky enough that my ex-husband is a decent dude, and he did not try to claim portion of my business. He did not try to get alimony. He didn't try any of that stuff. What we did was we sat down and we figured out what is the best way for us both to get the best head start, the best new start that we can do between the two of us, with reference to our son, of course. But we wanted to make sure that happened. And yes, did I end up putting out more money as a result of this and taking on more of our marital debt? Yes. But I was in a much better position than many of the women that Janice and I know in our lady entrepreneurship community who have been through. I mean, I know somebody who has spent more than $200,000 in legal fees so far fighting to keep her, like, the bulk of her business from the hands of her husband. Her ex-husband. I know somebody who just went ahead, gave up 50% of the business assets, wound down the business, and had to start fresh because she's just but 50% of it was gone, and she built every single penny of that. Plus paid her ex-husband, while he was her husband, a salary because he was working in the business. So he not only was he getting a salary during this whole thing, when it came to divide up the assets, she lost 50% of what was left of the business. And so, when you have, it is worth it. So if you pay $1,000 to create a prenup.
It's not $1,000. It's it depends on where you are, I guess, but it's more like $5,000. It's not cheap.
Still better than paying $200,000 in legal fees later.
Well, it is, unless you don't have $5,000. I mean,
there is a hack that I like to tell people about, because I was actually able to get my postnuptial done for $0. And this was because I had legal insurance. So this is one of those little known benefits that you can get through a corporate job. It's usually less than $10 per paycheck, and it covers a myriad of legal issues, including estate planning and prenups and postnups. So if you have access to legal insurance through your job, next time open enrollment opens up, make sure to sign up for that, especially if you know you have some legal stuff you want to take care of.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, Susie Orman was a big proponent of always having prenups, and I took issue with her on that years ago. Because, like I said, but if you're just starting out, you're just out of college, you don't have $5,000 for a prenup. And the other thing she said, too, she said, also, it's a wonderful opportunity to get to know each other better or something like that. And I'm like,
I think,
no, it ain't.
but I think
Well, you do got to put all your cards on the table, right? So that's the thing. You want to know what's the financial situation you're both walking into and what's the one you could potentially be losing out on in the future.
Yeah.
But I think the thing, though, right now, though, is today, right, the average age of marriage is well past college. The average age of marriage in the U.S. is sitting right around 26 to 27. And so the fact of the matter is a lot of people, by the time they actually take that step of getting married, they've been working for a few years. And so it is a little bit more affordable. And like for me, like, no, I did not have a prenup when I got married. I got married halfway through my last semester of college and was pregnant within 2 months. And like I said, I'm a lucky one. My ex-husband is great. We're friends. He didn't try to screw me over. But like these days, a lot of the time, right, women have been building their wealth prior to marriage.
Yeah.
And you want to protect that. And then you also want to make sure you're protecting it as you go. Even if you don't have a business yet, you want to make sure you're protecting that. Hey, wait a second. If I want my prenup to say, if I'm building a business, like I keep the business assets in the case of a divorce.
Of course you do, yeah. By the way, I don't mean to imply that I don't approve of prenups or postnups. I do. I'm just saying that people seem to approach that very casually when often it's not casual at all. Not only is it expensive, it's not really a great way to get closer together. I mean, I'm just telling you, having done it. Now, I didn't have any problem doing it with my current wife, but it's not a real comfortable conversation to talk about how your marriage is going to end before it begins.
Well, I think that's why we have to get really a lot more comfortable societally just talking about money. And that's one of the reasons why in my new book, I have a whole chapter on navigating love and money, because arguably the person that you marry has some of the biggest impact on your financial life. And just if you can't have conversations about money, there's probably a lot of more awkward conversations that you won't be able to have as a couple.
Yeah, you're right. That's absolutely true. But anyway, we're almost out of time. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover that we haven't brought up, Jannese?
No, I think that it's a pretty robust conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. We've gotten some specifics. I like to talk about specific things that our listeners can do. And you've given us some specific things. And it sounds like your courses might be useful too, especially when it comes to marketing your business or finding out what you want your business to be. That seems like a cool thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would just love the opportunity to plug the book before we close out, if that's possible.
No, you're about to plug the book right now. Watch this.
Okay, perfect.
Do me a favor and plug your book before we close out.
Sure. So my new book, Financially Lit, is going to be available April 30th, wherever you buy books. And it is an all-in-one guide for Latinas and women of color who want to learn all the things that they should have learned but did not about money. So we talk about everything from the basics of the importance of budgeting and saving, but we also talk about investing and financial independence and estate planning and prenups and insurance. So it's meant to be the guide that helps you navigate whatever financial situation that you're in. And you can get your copy at financiallylitbook.com.
Oh, cool. Because I have another website here too that I was going to promote for you, which was Yo Quiero Dinero podcast.com.
Yes, that's where you can find all things podcast and just learn more about me and the different ways that I can work with folks.
Okay, now you heard me say Yo Quiero Dinero, so now you say it so we know how it's supposed to be said.
Sure, so it is Yo Quiero Dinero.
See, that's just not fair. I don't understand why you can do that and I can't. I don't like it. Oh,
practice makes perfect.
There you go. Okay, folks, we are out of time today, but we are never, ever out of topic. So dig a little deeper. You're going to find links to lots more info in our show notes. And remember, if your goal is to make more, to spend less, to retire rich, well, your online home is obvious. It's moneytalksnews.com. And don't forget to check out Miranda's online home as well. That is Miranda Marquit, MARQUIT.com. And we just said Jannese's website, but let's say it one more time. Yo Quiero Dinero.
Yo Quiero Dinero. I'm not even as good as
I know the words.
Jannese,
I just don't have the same pronunciation. Yo Quiero Dinero podcast.com.
So much better at this than we are. But we're trying.
If you've got,
Thank you, guys.
If you folks have a question or comment or topic you'd like to suggest, please tell us about it. You can email us at hello@moneytalksnews.com. And one last thing. Remember, we're not giving you financial advice, so make sure you do your own research and consult your own experts before acting on anything you learn here. And if you like what we do, do something for us. Subscribe to our podcast. Tell your friends. Get a sandwich board and start parading up and down Main Street. Do whatever you can to help me make more money. Thanks for being here, Janice. I'm Stacy Johnson.
I'm Miranda Marquette.
I'm Aaron Freeman.
Thanks for hanging out with us, folks. We're going to see you right here next time.